Welcome in, Big Blue Nation, to another episode of the Cats Talk podcast. I'm your host, Cameron Johnston, joined by my co-host, as always, Jacob Boyers. Jacob, first off, before we get into the Kentucky basketball news, really is no news. This has been the longest. It's only been, a week since we played last? And it feels like this game was maybe 2 to 3 months ago, for all I know. But first off, before we get started on all this, how was the Christmas, sir?
Christmas is great. Kids had a ball. Pretty busy. A lot of different houses we had to hit up, but yeah, no complaints. How about yourself?
Well, first off, I got to ask the girls. What was the favorite toy they got?
God.
What was the household hit?
Man, all kinds of stuff. I don't know how much of our audience is familiar with Gabby's dollhouse, but that was a big one. So yeah, Harper was pretty excited for that, and then my other one got she got some imagination toys with little princesses, so they've been having a blast.
Can't beat it. Can't beat it. Sounds like a great weekend over at the Boyers household. Jake, you mentioned it. We had to look at this game because it feels like it's been so long ago that we had to look at all this again. And first thing you mentioned, you're like, "Oh yeah, Kam Williams had 8 threes in this game."
Yep.
Of course. I don't know how you forgot about this. You just needed that spark plug reminder. But obviously, we're talking about Kentucky's win over Bellarmine, 99-85. And, offense was clicking on almost all cylinders. Obviously, struggled tremendously on the defensive end. But what were some of your big takeaways from this game before we get into a big non-conference recap for the season?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest one, obviously, is Kam Williams. I think right before we hopped off the last episode, we said, like, what do we want to see? And I said, really, the one thing is just Kam Williams maybe make some shots in rump and kind of continue his positive momentum. I would say, shooting 80% and making 8 of them from behind the arc is making some at rump and carrying the momentum. So I think he did exactly that. My other big takeaway was just, you could tell Pope was pretty frustrated with his halftime interview with their defense. It really didn't appear to get any better in the second half. I'm going to chalk that up to it was 1 p.m. on December 23rd, and these guys were just ready to go home, but not necessarily worried about it going forward. I just think, probably one of those lapses you wish didn't happen, but, these guys are, humans too, so it happens. But, yeah, didn't obviously love the defensive effort, but I don't read too much into it for the future.
Yeah, and it's hard to, especially with the defensive performances you've seen in, 3 of the last 4 games between North Carolina, Indiana, and St. John's. Obviously, you had that Gonzaga game in the mix of that nothing looked good. And I think from here out, after we have this conversation,
we nuked that game from our memory.
We just throw that out because that was such an anomaly on so many different fronts that I don't even really think it belongs in the piece of the pie of what we talk about when we talk about this team for the season. But 99 points, 58% shooting from the field, 53% shooting from 3, made 16 threes. When you talk about things that you want to see, it's guys like Denzel Aberdeen finally making those threes, being able to produce in that. He was still technically kind of running the point guard, ran some of the 2 with Jasper out there as well, him hitting those threes. And then, talk about Jasper as well. Jasper went 3 of 5 from 3 in this game. Yep. And the best part about what I think I saw of Jasper's game, 7 assists. Like that playmaking ability that he had against Bellarmine. Granted, it's against Bellarmine's defense, so take it with a grain of salt. But that's one of the things that I think I took away from this game, seeing him be able to facilitate like that to where, we're going to play this game all year of, is Jalen healthy? There's going to be games where he goes in healthy and we don't see him for a half. Like you saw it to a T against St. John's. We're going to ride this roller coaster all year. Can Jasper step up and facilitate like that? So I think it was good to see at least him be able to do that against Bellarmine.
Yeah, and I don't really care, honestly, who it comes against. Anything you can do to get, any of these guys kind of confidence going, especially on the offensive side of the ball, the guys that we've seen struggle. Now we're seeing a few games strung together in a row with Kam Williams. I obviously think that's huge. We both think he's going to be one of your 5 best players that's got to play for most of the year. But then, same thing with Jasper. Again, I don't care if it's Bellarmine. Get out there, hit a couple threes. I mean, the guy did like a spin turnaround three, and I think everybody
when he has those Jasper Johnston plays that look like that, it's incredible.
Yeah.
But then he might go the next trip down there and make another Jasper Johnston. It's almost the Brandon Garrison experience, just with a lot higher of a ceiling.
Yeah, yeah. But no, I was good to see him get a lot of run. Like you mentioned, the 7 assists are huge because you're going to need him, I think, in a backup point guard role, even with Lowe being fully healthy, if knock on wood, if that happens. And then Jalen obviously didn't play. JQ only played 7 minutes. I thought it was the right decision. I know you said before you wanted to see Jalen get a little run. I think any chance you have to not put him in harm's way, you kind of have to do it. But, I mean, really, those were my only takeaways. I am going to admit I was watching this game while working. I don't know. I think I'm over the 1 p.m. Tuesday starts, but
I don't think anybody is a fan of those.
Luckily, we're done with those.
And happy that we are, because I was working as well. Now, granted, was I paying a little bit more attention to the game than the work that was being done? Potentially. Hopefully, the employer is not listening to this as we're speaking. But, we're already like 7 minutes into this podcast. We haven't mentioned Otega Owe almost getting a triple-double in this game. Yeah. Obviously, I mean, didn't shoot the ball too well, 2 of 7 from the floor, but 10 assists. I mean, that's the first time we've seen that playmaking ability from Otega as well. 8 rebounds. I don't know what more you could have asked for in a game like this. Obviously, I mean, he got the ball to the rack, got to the free throw line, hit those free throws when he was there. And, dude, if I could sign up for half of the effort, I don't want to say half of the effort because I think he's been giving effort consistently over these past couple games. Just half of the effort to make plays for others on the offensive end from Otega in this game and play that going forward, I think that'll help this team a lot.
Definitely. I mean, 10 assists, I don't have Otega's career numbers. That's got to be probably a career high.
I would assume so, yeah.
Or right there with it. I mean, definitely more of the playmaking. And then, going 6 of 8 from the free throw line, I think is another, pretty strong statement from him. I thought he was really good again. I mean, 2 of 7, but again, if there's nights where he's not really getting it, it feels great to not see him force it. I think we saw obviously a lot of that in the beginning of the year, a ton last year. Even if he wasn't getting it, he was still trying to go to the rim and go at 3 guys. To see him make some of those good passes, I think was a huge positive sign.
Yeah, extremely positive. And then each time I say this, like I keep looking at this, and Mo Diabate might have had the quietest 20 points I've ever seen in my life. I mean, 9 of 11 from the floor, 2 of 4 from the free throw line, 5 boards, 20 points, 3 blocks, 2 steals. I get this was about a week ago. I feel like I don't remember an output like this for whatever reason. I should have rewatched this game right before we went because 20 points, 5 boards, and it impacted the way he did defensively too. I think it's good to see him play. He played 32 minutes in this game. I think that's something good to see too, that he's getting fully healthy, because we're mentioning it like the biggest thing about this team is just going to be health. And whether we can beat around the bush with X's and O's and different lineups to mix in and who's shooting the ball well and all of this, biggest thing is going to be the health of this team. And Mo is a big key to that. It looks like he's finally back to full strength.
Yeah, poor Bellarmine had no answer for Mo's strength there. I mean, he was getting what he wanted anytime he wanted at the rim. But again, like, it's another case of, like, I understand it's Bellarmine, but I don't really care who it is against. Like, if you told me before the season Mo Diabate probably at any point this year scores 20, I probably don't really believe you. And just the back-to-back performances he's put on display since coming back from the injury, I mean, you said it. You can't ask for anything more from him. And I just think that there's obviously, some issues from this game a week ago, but I think there were a lot of the positive signs. And, if you ask me which end of the floor I probably would have wanted to look better than the other against Bellarmine, you probably wouldn't say you wanted to figure out some stuff offensively, because I think we know how this team can play defensively against high level competition, and to be able to figure out some stuff on the offensive side, I think is a good sign going forward.
Yeah, and I'll agree with you on that. We obviously wanted to see a great offensive output against Bellarmine. Does it concern you? I think the spread was what, for like 37.5 for this game. Does it concern you that this game was within 14 points? Because for me, the only thing that it really does for me is matchup wise. They were a little undersized, a little bit. I don't want to say quicker than us, but they were quick. Their bigs were quicker than our bigs. Do you think that's something that potentially a team like Alabama or insert SEC opponent is something they can take advantage of, or do you expect once Jaden Quaintance gets back into full game health and full game strength, that'll be something that he cleans up and is a little better on that end? Where do you stand on that?
Yeah, I think you hit it. I do think obviously you probably should have won by more than 14 against Bellarmine. I think we said I don't care who they roll out, we're going to win this game by 20 plus, and I do feel that way. Like I don't think it was obviously the greatest effort, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Again, I chalk that up to it was the 2 days before Christmas. This team was ready to enjoy their 10 days off, and they just unfortunately didn't come out and play with great intensity on the defensive side. Now, I don't really see it as like a red flag for anything, in part because Jalen Lowe didn't play. Quaintance, you only played him a couple minutes each half, really, just to kind of keep letting him get some run. But, this was obvious it wasn't going to be a game you were going to push him. I think, Alabama, we probably see him play 20-ish minutes. And I think a lot of kind of the flaws you saw, he'll be able to help it. Now, don't get me wrong. I know we're going to dive into Alabama. Like, I still think that that's a big matchup problem. I mean, the thing that's killed us all year is good, quick guards, and Phylon is probably going to maybe be the best one we've seen, out, right there with, Mikel Brown. So I just think there's obviously some concerns for this Alabama game just because I don't know how great we match up with them on paper. But as far as like little lapses in this game, I don't really read too much into it.
Yeah, and I'm still seeing ghosts from playing Bama 3 times last year. If I'm going to be
Yep.
completely honest with you, man, none of those games were fun to watch in the slightest. I watched all 3 of them. I think all 3 times I was out with family or friends watching the game, thinking, "Oh, you know what, man? We'll do a little something here. We'll do a little
Yep.
something. Payback. You can't beat a team 3 straight times, Jake. That's the big myth. You can't beat a team
They,
three straight
they
times,
killed us in the third one.
and they destroyed us. It wasn't even close, and may have led to a few extra beverages being taken down on Broadway when we were down there in Nashville. But Jake, let's go ahead. I mean, only things left to talk about with this Bellarmine game. Obviously, I mean, Brandon Garrison didn't return with a knee injury. Of course, they said that was all just out of precaution. So I think
Yep.
BG is going to be good to go. How much money would I have had to have given you to believe the fact that when Jaden Quaintance played in this game, he'd have a negative plus minus?
Yeah, I mean, this feels like the kind of game he probably should have dominated. But again, you give him more than 10 minutes, I think that probably flips the other way. But yeah, I would have never believed you. To be honest, I wouldn't expect anybody besides maybe like Walker Horn to have a negative one. If he came in the last minute and a half, that's really it.
All right, Jake, let's go ahead and talk about, because this has been a roller coaster of a season.
Oh
Like
yeah,
you start off the preseason, you beat number 1 Purdue, and Jake's out there. He's got number 9 painted on his chest, running around the state of Kentucky, just
oh, I was already putting the banner up, buddy.
cheering everyone on. And I was right there with them. And then obviously you lose that game to Georgetown, and kind of everything really from there on just starts going downhill. But then find a little life. You beat Indiana, beat St. John's, get a little back to back going. Let's just talk about the season, the roller coaster in itself. Like, what do you think are some of the big storylines from what we've seen so far from this Kentucky team?
I mean, I think it's pretty obvious, right? It's health, and I know that obviously every team deals with injuries. You can't make excuses, and even without Jalen Lowe and JQ, me and you have sat here and talked till we're blue in the face about this team should have been better than they were in, that North Carolina game offensively and the effort against Gonzaga and all these.
About the Gonzaga
Yeah.
game.
And all these different things, like, even without those guys, that team was still not so bad that you should have gotten ran off the floor against Gonzaga and Michigan State and for most of the Louisville game. With that being said, though, I do think you see what this team can kind of be. We saw it at the second half against Indiana. You saw it in the second half against St. John's. Jalen Lowe plays practically 0 minutes in the first half of St. John's. You scored 20-something points. He plays all but 5 minutes in the second half, and you score 53. So, like, my big thing just for the season is Jalen Lowe might be the most important Kentucky player we've had in a very long time when you look at what this offense looks like with and without him. That's why, the offensive side, I think, was as encouraging against Bellarmine as the defensive side, just to, again, see Kam Williams shoot the ball with confidence, see the playmaking from Jasper. I think Mo being able to score, just it all kind of clicked. And as big of a red flag as maybe the defense looked like, I think you were as positive on the offensive side of the ball. So, I mean, really my big takeaway is I just think, unfortunately, without Jalen Lowe, this is a NIT team. With him, we'll see what the ceiling kind of looks like.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of what you just said there, it's just, you can only say it like in so many different ways.
Yeah.
And like a way I want to look at this team in general is just through the first 14 games of the season, they had 8 different leading scorers in those 14 games. I think that kind of shows like where this team at, and not a single one of them have been Jalen Lowe or Jaden Quaitons, who coming into the season you probably would have thought, oh, maybe not JQ just because of the injury timeline and when he's going to be coming back. I think you would have expected Jalen Lowe to be one of those so far this year. I mean, you're looking at games with Trent Noah leading. Kam Williams obviously has done it twice now. I think outside of the Gonzaga game and the Michigan State game, like if you were just, and granted, you can't do this. Obviously, if you could, everything would be a lot better. But you throw those 2 games out, you look at a 3-point loss to North Carolina in which you just couldn't shoot the ball well. And we went, 8 minutes without a field goal in that game. And then that Louisville game, you lost to a good team on their home floor by 8 points.
In beginning of November.
Yeah.
But
so, I just kind of wanted to take like a step back and just like phrase it like that. Like while not being healthy, like that's what this team has done. Because I know what you and I do, we go through every single game. So we obviously ride the highs and go with the lows of this team on a game by game basis. But looking back on it, I mean, with Jalen not playing significantly in any of these games, JQ obviously really only playing that St. John's game, dealing with, I mean, even, it doesn't mean that much. Trent Noah being injured in limited games, Colin Chandler having to be like your go-to offensive guy to start the season, no camaraderie with the team.
Mo missing games.
Can I say, like, I'm kind of surprised that they're sitting here at 9-4 based on, like, if after that Gonzaga game, we were talking about splitting one of 2, St. John's and Indiana. I'm kind of surprised to be sitting here at 9-4 after the ending of that Gonzaga game.
Yeah, kind of begging for a split, honestly. I mean, you were in real danger of losing both. The other thing I think really since the Michigan State game that's been, pretty good positive is I think just how much better Ortega's looked, right? Like you're getting him back to the player we expected from a year ago coming in. And I don't know what it is, but like this team definitely feels like obviously the effort's better. It feels like whatever buttons Pope kind of pushed after Gonzaga has, gotten this team to play harder and play better. I mean, we were talking about how it looked like they all hate each other. Like that feels like it's going away. It feels like everything's just kind of clicking. So, there's a lot of basketball left, right? You got 3 months, and if you can continue to play with the effort, even in a game where maybe Jalen Lowe doesn't play or only plays a few minutes because he gets banged up, like I do think the effort alone, I don't know if it'll win you some high level games, but I do feel more confident that like a performance like Gonzaga or Michigan State, even to an extent, are kind of beyond you.
Yeah, and I mean, if anything, just those effort lapses, just you don't want to lose these games like at Mississippi State.
Right.
Games like that, I think the floor is raised with the ability to give out consistent effort at the least, whether
Yep.
we stay healthy or we don't. But just kind of want to look at this schedule because obviously we know we kind of have a gauntlet still. The SEC is not
Yep.
as good as it was last year, but you still have to face a lot of good teams. Obviously, I don't think either you or I, based off of our preseason predictions, are projecting these guys to do what we did early in the season. But if you're looking at this conference schedule, big picture, what are you thinking from this team and what do you expect going forward?
Yeah, like you mentioned, Cam, the SEC is obviously not what it was a year ago, but there's still a lot of really good teams. I mean, Vandy's the 11th best team in the country. You got to play them, in Nashville and at Rupp. So there's some teams that are a little better than I think we thought they would be coming into the season. Probably some teams that are a little worse. As far as like overall expectations, I don't know. It's crazy because like I feel like 12-6 that does give you 10 losses, total on the year. I think like right now, if you told me like 13-5, I would obviously sign up for that. I think you go to 5 or 6 ranked teams here in the next 3 months. So big picture, like I said, I think I'm probably expecting this team to be, you know, probably a similar like 4 to 5 in the conference is kind of where you were hovering at parts last year. But yeah, I think you're probably going to finish somewhere around 12-6 again. 13-5. I would probably sign up for that right now.
Yeah, I mean, you played 9 ranked teams this year, whether on the road or at home. Bama, Tennessee, Vandy. We obviously got that game against Arkansas. Tennessee twice, Florida twice, Vandy twice, and even Georgia. I think Georgia's probably one of those teams you're referring to. It's been a little bit better than what we expected. They're ranked 23rd right now. And then, I mean, you have a lot of your you got to win them games are at home. You play Ole Miss, Texas, Missouri, Mississippi State, those games all at home, Oklahoma as well. Like you have to, in my opinion, you almost have to run the table when it comes to the home schedule. You'll have to face Florida at home and Vandy in Georgia. Those are only 3 ranked teams that you play. And if we're talking about, going 12-6, those are going to have to be the three of the ranked wins that you get. Like that's how you're going to you have to clean up in the home schedule. And that's really what it comes down to. Like how they perform at Rupp is really what's going to figure out how good this team is. And it's hard for me to make a prediction on like what this team is going to do because it depends on so many different things. Like you've outlined it kind of just in this podcast alone. Is Jalen fully healthy for all these games? Are we getting him for like 25 minutes in all these games? Or is it like the Lamont situation last year where he's all good to go for 30 this game, next game he can't play? You know what I mean? It's day in, day out. You never know what's going to change. So it's really, really hard to make predictions for this team. I kind of want to just talk here with you and just figure out like what do you think is the floor? Like let's start there. Like what do we think this team has to do in SEC play to feel I don't want to say like just good enough to get into the tournament, but where do you think the floor is for this tournament to at least feel good about the team?
Probably 12-6. Honestly, I think once you get more than 10 losses, like yeah, you could still make the tournament, but I think you're probably in a little bit of a tough spot. And if you do make it, you're probably a pretty low seed. I guess it honestly also depends on like, what are the games you win. If you go and get, you know, a bunch of quad one wins and beat Alabama on the road and then come back and lose to Georgia at home late in the year, that's probably better for your resume than the vice versa. So I think that all depends. But I mean, for this team to, I think, feel good, be a 7 or an 8 seed, like you definitely, I don't think, can have more than 10 total losses on the season.
Yeah, and there's also like So you think that's the floor? Like, where do we
No,
think?
like if you're
That's
at,
what
like
I'm asking. That's
you
what I'm.
said, yeah, no, my bad. I misunderstood. I thought you said like the floor for this team to kind of feel good going into the tournament. Like there's still very much a world where like this team doesn't make the tournament. Like the floor could be really low. Like if you
I
tell
think the
me,
floor is like 9-9, and it's going
yeah,
500 in conference play.
yeah. I mean, if you tell me like Jalen gets banged up again and misses significant time, I think we've seen just how. I mean, just again, look at the St. John's game. Like it looked like we put two completely different teams out on the floor from the first half to the second half just by him playing versus not playing. Like without him, I think there's probably only a handful of SEC teams you're for sure better than. With him, I think you could probably compete with anybody in this conference because again, I think this conference is it's got a lot of good teams. I don't think it has anybody that's like great. So with Jalen Lowe, I think we can be as good as anybody in this conference. Without him, I think you could be a you know, bottom 3 or 4 team, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, 7 of those teams that we mentioned that are ranked that we play are all in between the 11 to 23 marker. So, I mean, like you
Yeah,
mentioned, I don't think there's any team that's going to make necessarily like a deep run into the NCAA tournament that we kind of saw last year and the SEC just dominate. But man, I, I'm there with like I think floor for this team is like 9-9, and then you're talking about like 9-9 depending on the wins. Is that a tournament team having 13 losses? Is that I
you'll be a bubble team. I mean, I guess depending on who you beat, maybe you can get in there. But I mean, you're definitely, I think, flirting on the bubble.
and then I mean, since we just did the negative, and you got to start with the negative, then go positive. Let's talk about all things click. Jaden Quaintance is that JQ you had on last Saturday against St. John's. Jalen Lowe does stay healthy. You don't have to worry about this shoulder popping in and out. You get this Otega that's been a leader and showing this effort on both sides of the floor. What do you think this team can do? Because we've seen flashes of like if they put it all together, you can see where the roster construction, while it still has flaws, you can see what they were thinking. Where do you think
Yeah,
this team can go in this SEC? Because I do still think that this SEC, like you mentioned, is still really open.
yeah, definitely. And I think you pretty much saw it in the second half of the St. John's game. I feel like we're going to sound like a broken record talking about it, but I mean that team in that second half, I think can make some noise. I don't think they're like a top 5 team in the country. I still think Michigan and a bunch of other teams would be heavy favorites against them. But like as far as the SEC, like I said it, like that team could be as good as any team in the SEC, and I think they could. I don't know, 3 or 4 losses. I'm sure you'll drop a couple of those on the road, but like if everything clicks, they could be a top 3 seed and get the double bye in the SEC tournament. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Again, the SEC I think has a lot of good teams, but like who do you feel confident about winning this conference? I don't really think there's anybody. I mean, Alabama's shown they got some flaws. I think they're obviously a poor matchup for us and
Very poor.
still a top 15 team in the country, but like to your point, this isn't the team that went to the Elite 8 a year ago in the Final Four before that. Like they have good guard play, so like maybe they can get crazy hot and shock some people in the tournament, but like I don't expect, Alabama to be a team that's legitimately contending for a Final Four, and they're probably the next best. You've seen Florida lose a bunch of games. They've at times looked pretty bad. I mean, outside of Bama, like right now, maybe Vandy's the next best team, but like,
Arkansas.
yeah, yeah, Arkansas does look good. So I mean, but like, if you tell me like this team fully healthy, the team we saw in the second half last Saturday, like I I don't really see any reason they can't compete and be as good, if not better, than all of those teams.
Yeah, and I kind of think that the ceiling for conference play is probably 14-4. I think that's probably the ceiling for this team because I think we're going to keep mentioning it. I don't think we face up well against Alabama. There's not a, I don't want to say there's not a world where I see us winning that game, but Ladarian Philon, and then I mean, we've struggled with guards so much this year. I can't imagine those two not just running rampant on us. And then I think it's going to be a full year of just like taking care of business against teams that you need to. Mizzou, Mississippi State, LSU, Texas, Ole Miss, taking care of those games. As long as you take care of those. And then really it's about like splitting against Tennessee, split against Vanderbilt, split against Florida. Say you take losses to all three of those. You're looking at 4 losses there. Can you beat Cal on the road? Can you beat Georgia at home?
We owe them. We're beating Cal this year.
That's
I don't care if Lowe plays. I don't care who plays. We're going down and winning that game in Fayetteville.
I hope you're right because I can't imagine seeing the. I almost said some bad words there. I can't imagine seeing the smile on that guy's face after beating them twice in a row. I think 14-4 is probably where I look at their ceiling, and then I mean at that point, if you're talking about a good amount of these ranked wins, I think you really start to feel pretty good about this team if they go 14-4 in this SEC play.
Oh yeah, I mean, I just said 13-5. I would sign up today. You tell me 14-4. I'm feeling pretty good, and I'm starting to dream of a Final Four run again.
I'm there with you because I think especially like we've seen Vanderbilt do this. They did this last year where they started off hot and kind of just tapered towards the end of the season. Is that something that they're going to do again? Tennessee, I honestly just think Tennessee's kind of a good matchup for us. I think just in the way it was last year for 2 of those games, unfortunately not the one that mattered the most. I think you could take both of those. I think you could look at a world where any way I get to it, I still come back to 14-4 being the ceiling for conference play. But I do think it is doable. Now, granted, just as doable as I think it is, I think you're one Jalen Lowe running into a screen away from being 9-9 and scratching and clawing and being a bubble team to get to the tournament. So with that being said, like the roller coaster, I don't think we're anywhere near this roller coaster being over. We're still going to be riding highs and lows throughout this entire season.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, outside of a handful of teams, like that's probably most teams in the country. But I mean, back to Vandy real quick. Like again, they're 13-0, but their best win is Memphis. Like
that's what I'm. Yeah.
Like so, there is a real world where they roll into SEC play and start getting kind of punched in the mouth. I do think they're a good team, but it's what Memphis and then maybe like VCU are their 2 best wins. So yeah, I just you call it a roller coaster. I think that's going to be the perfect way to describe it. So much is just going to depend on her. I mean, we legitimately could be saying like Jalen Lowe's the difference between going 14-4 or 8-10 and missing the tournament. So it's crazy to kind of have that much on him, but that's what I really feel like.
Yeah, it's almost unfair to give him that too, unfortunately, but it's the position that we're in. Obviously, with losing a guy like Caden Lewis towards the last moment and not having that true backup guy set yet. Now, with all this being said, we also did speak for 3 minutes or so about Jasper Johnston and that playmaking showing up a little bit. Otega Owe doing the same. So hopefully, maybe if anything, this like turmoil early in the season has helped Otega and Jasper feel a little bit more confident in the ability to play make. That way, maybe that floor isn't so low if Jalen does go out. But this team is such a different. Everything is different with Jalen Lowe on the court. Even it's weird to say because you were told all offseason that he's a bad defender. Almost feels like they're better defensively when he's out there too.
Yeah, I feel like he just speeds the game up so much, right? If there is a potential ball, like he can get that thing and get transition moving. Like you look so much better in your kind of fast paced offense. But to your point, I think he does a good job of, he's not the best defender in the world, but I just think he plays so fast at all times that he's even speeding up the other team at times. So, I mean, he's huge. You ready to dive into this Bama game that we both said we don't feel good about, or
not because I gotta. You know what we do around here? Report cards. Non-conference slate is done. Give me the report card for the team so far. Give me one for what you think Coach Pope has done, and then give me one for just the team in general.
I honestly think they're both the same. I think they're both probably like a C minus. You know, like they're. I don't think you completely flunked because you were able to get some good wins, get some wins that will look good on the resume. But like at the same time, I can't overlook how poor the effort and everything was against Gonzaga. I can't overcome how poor it looks like without Jalen Lowe. Like this roster looked constructed at times, but like I also think again it's only been 2 games, so like it's hard to say that they've turned the tide. But like I do think if we continue on this path, I think Pope deserves a lot of credit for figuring out whatever buttons he had to push, whether it was just laying into BG and benching him, or it was some other stuff behind the scenes. Like these guys are effectively playing harder now, right? So I do think like you got to give credit. As negative as we were to that point, you got to give some credit that some things look a little better. Hopefully they're figuring out that this isn't a team that even with Jalen Lowe, like you can just jack up a bunch of threes and run a similar offense to what you ran last year. It feels like in Indiana in the second half of St. John's, they kind of went to what this team's going to kind of have to be offensively. So it's so hard to give a better grade just because again you only saw it for the last 2 games of non-conference play that matter. But I would be right there to C minus, I think, for both.
Yeah, I think I've got different grades for the two, and they're not crazy different between the two. I think just for the players that are on the court, I'm just going to go with the straight C because we kind of mentioned this, like taking a step back. If you just, and I know it's tough to say because they looked so horrendously bad in the Gonzaga and Michigan State game. If you take those games out, they lost by 3 to North Carolina, who have a stud freshman in Caleb Wilson, who kind of just dominated you during that game on the boards. And you were missing JQ, and which was that guy that was supposed to match up well against a guy like that. And then the Louisville game, obviously, in November, you mentioned it earlier. You lost by 8. Mikel Brown went off. The guy, 2 guards just had terrific games. Outside of that, I mean, I don't think the effort has been too much of a concern outside of the Michigan State and Gonzaga game. And I think these guys have done a really good job of rallying around each other because you know how Big Blue Nation gets. We're going to be your biggest fans and we're going to follow you around whatever you're doing for the rest of your career. Like you listen to guys like Willie Cauley-Stein talk who like are coming back now after, 10 plus years of being away. Like you're not going to get that everywhere. But guess what? The critics are also going to be just as loud, if not even louder. And there's people like us, like we're going to be critical if, we don't think that you're laying it all out there. And they've showed resiliency. They bounced back, played well against Indiana, played well against St. John's. And a lot of those, like the effort just ticked up so much in those games. People were diving on the floor, going for loose balls and all of that. So I think I'm going to give them a C just for the team in general. And hopefully, for health purposes, hopefully we can just we'll get that one higher. When it comes to Mark, Jake, you know me. I don't like to be Mr. Negative. I love to be a sunshine pumper. I love to. This camp, I'm going back and forth on if it's just a straight D or if it's a D plus. There was no sense of urgency to get anything going after that Michigan State game. Like after then, it was like, oh, everything's fine. We got everything where we want to do, where we want to be. There was no mixing. We weren't trying anything different. Lineups weren't changing. Minutes weren't changing. Guys who weren't giving effort like Brandon Garrison were still not being held accountable. Otega Owe to that same effect. And there's just the roster construction goes into this too, goes into this grade. Now, I'm sure he has help with that, but you can't come into the season with one guy making or breaking your entire roster, especially when it's not a guy who's going to be a top 5 pick. It's not like this was your highest expense. This wasn't this is our guy who's going to take us. This was just one of the guys. There should have been a backup plan to have. And the fact they didn't have one, I'm D or D plus, maybe a D plus just because they've rallied as of late. But then again, this also is 2 of the worst non-conference teams that we've played. So
Yeah, I mean, I'm not far, obviously way more optimistic than than you are. Um, I do think, obviously, later than we would have liked it. We would have liked to have seen a lot of these changes. I think it was all stuff we were complaining about after Michigan State. I mean, he did do it at some point, right? Bench BG, did whatever he could to kind of. And now it seems like Garrison's responded pretty well to that. I think, honestly, better than I thought he would. I thought he would pretty much be done, and I was kind of okay with it. But I think you saw that. But working some of these different lineups, playing Cam at the 3, that's stuff that you've said for a while now. And again, I elevate him slightly ahead of you to a C minus, but I do agree, like, it probably took too long, but we're here now. Let's knock on wood, stay healthy, and go win 14 games in the conference, and we'll act like this non-conference was just a hiccup and a blimp on the radar.
yep. And I know these team doctors can't do anything about these injuries, but if I could give them a grade just for team health, it's an F. It's an F. I know they can't.
It would not be good. I
I
mean,
know
hey,
they
maybe
got.
maybe a D because they got JQ ready to go. I think a little sooner than people thought.
Nah, I'm fully kidding. Those trainers that they have, those guys are. I mean, just listen to JQ talk about how much they've done for him in the rehab process. I think they're doing a terrific job. Just these injury luck that we've had, man, is or injury bad luck, I guess you should say. It's got to be.
It's
I don't.
unfortunate.
I mean, I'm knock on wood. It's got to be over, right? Like it's like, come on, man. I just give me a
If,
help.
if 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 somebody gets hurt on Saturday, I want everybody to write at Cameron Johnston. You can find him on X. You can find him on Facebook, Instagram. I don't care, but that was fully Cam. Jacob Boyers had nothing to do with that jinx that I think was just thrown out there.
I knocked on wood, man. I knocked on wood. I had my fingers crossed while I said it. There was a lot there that I put into making sure that the jinx doesn't stick. But Jake, let's go ahead and get into this Alabama game. Obviously, I think we've said it already. Terrible matchup for us, and one I don't think either one of us are going to predict a win. But this Bama team, man, I'm just scrolling through stats. We obviously know Ladarian Philon, Aiden Holloway, Taylor Bowen, who we heavily went after in the portal, thinking that, for a while that we had a good chance to get. Just looking at some of these guys, man, looking at these 3-point percentages, I'm like double checking them to make sure like these are right. Because Aiden Holloway is shooting 44% from 3. Ladarian Philon is shooting 42% from 3. Jaleel Bethea is shooting 45% from 3. Taylor Bowen, 34%. Amari Allen, 35%. And they got 2 more guys that are shooting 44% or higher as well that I didn't even mention in that. This is an insanely good shooting team. And with the athletic guards that they have that can get to the rim when they want to, I'm scared. I don't know what you want to say.
Yep. Nope. I get it, and I'm gonna predict Bama to win. So, but can I just take a second to maybe paint a picture where Kentucky can find a way to do this?
I would love for you to.
You're gonna have to play a style that's obviously different than what we tried to do a year ago, running up and down the floor with them. I would assume Pope kind of realizes that, especially with this team, how we've seen him play against St. John's. The offense is slowly coming along, so like I don't think this team can go out there and score 95 and win in a track meet, but I do think with Lowe playing fully healthy, knock on wood, there's a world where you can score enough. But I think they're going to have to obviously play. We're almost going to kind of have to beat them inside. And I do think we have the better bigs in this game, especially if you tell me, JQ is able to give you 20 to 25 minutes and build off that St. John's game. The other thing, these guards that have killed us, while, I don't think Lowe gives us a huge advantage in like the defensive side. One thing is like, in those other games in the past, when they get to the rim, there's zero protection there.
Mm-hmm.
If you have JQ there, I think that changes it quite a bit. Like guys probably don't have to step.
Malachi's been blocking shots pretty well too. So.
Yeah, so I do think like the rim protection. I think can change a little bit from what we've seen like these athletic guards do to kill us in the past. So again, I'm going to predict Bama to win, but I don't think it's as crazy as I probably thought a couple weeks ago, and as bad of a matchup it is. Like I think we can cause some matchup issues for them too, especially down low. Like this is going to be, I think, a big Diabate game, a big JQ game. You know, if you can get either Malachi or BG to give you some good minutes, like I just, you're going to have to obviously knock down some shots when they're open. But like I do think as bad as we match up with them, defense has been obviously a lot better as of late, and we've seen it. I just think we can create a couple mismatches, and like I wouldn't be shocked if, with a few minutes to go, this is a 3-point game and it could go either way. Like I do think that there is a path for this team. I don't expect it to be like we saw in the SEC tournament a year ago, just because we can win in a different way, right? We don't have to go out there and I think score 102 to find a way to beat them.
Yeah, and while I agree with like a good amount of what you said, and I know we're trying to find a way in which Kentucky can win this game, we are just like, even with Jalen out there, we have to play fast pace offensively to score. And that plays right into Alabama's hands. And I think that's kind of where I don't know if we can slow it down enough to play a different style of basketball. I don't know if we are consistent enough in the half court to be able to slow it down and play a different type of basketball. Because I think theoretically, we want to play like how Alabama is playing. And right now that we're just outmanned and outgunned, and I don't think we can really keep up with it. But, I mean, with all that being said, though, this is also a team in Alabama that gave up 96 to St. John's. So, I mean, the opportunity to score and score a lot of points is going to be there. You just have to be able to hit shots and knock down shots. I'd love to just tell you, I got a great feeling about this one, but
Nah, I
usually,
hope we're both dead wrong.
usually when I have these feelings of like there's no chance they're going to win this game, is usually when they find and claw and scratch a way to win a game. Because we've mentioned it, Bama they want threes and layups at the rim, layups and dunks at the rim. That's all they want. No mid range. They don't want anything like that. And you mentioned JQ and Malachi affecting a lot of shots. I think those two specifically we have to have a big game defensively, and you got to keep them off the offensive glass. Can't have second chance points with Alabama. They turn into wide open, uncontested threes that they drill. Feels like 9 times out of 10. So I think I don't want to say you have to play a perfect game, but you have to know where your advantages are, and it's going to be on the glass, and it's going to be around the rim. And you've really just got to hope you hit enough shots, hope Jalen hits some shots, hope Cam goes 8 for 10 again. Like, it's really what it is.
Yeah, and I think if you can honestly get in Ortega like you saw the other night, because his worst games last year were against Bama, but like if you can get him where he doesn't feel like he's got to force those shots at the rim and like he's got to go score 25 for us to have a chance in this game, like let him be a better playmaker like we saw Tuesday. But I do think like I'm not going to talk myself into picking Kentucky. Like there's not going to be a world. There's not going to be a world where I go and bet them or anything. Like I do that from time to time, but like I do think there's a world where like we just find a way to hang around in there and steal this one. I say that there's also a very big world where we lose by 25 and Bama just doesn't miss and we can't keep up. Like that could happen as well.
Happened times last year.
Yeah, but like if you tell me Phylon goes out and gets 35, like it's not going to surprise me honestly in the slightest. So, but I don't know. I just do think that there is a small path here that if everything goes well, all these guys play well, there's a world where like Kentucky, I do think has a chance in this one.
I wish I had that same feeling with you, and I didn't
We'll
have that
see.
feeling last year when we played Tennessee the first time, and they won that game. I mean, they've had a way of squeaking out these wins that you don't think they should. Hopefully, this is one. Hopefully, this is Mark finally getting finally getting a win against Bama. I mean, this would take him to 1-3 now against them. So, I mean, it would be terrific. Jake, do you want me to do the honors of casting the first prediction, or would you like to take it?
Either way, I'll go first. I mean, I made you go first one time, and you cried about it for 3 episodes, and
Weeks.
yeah. So I'll go ahead and take this one. I'll
Wait, let me write
say,
that down before you do yours. That way, there's no.
yeah,
Right.
I'll say it's a close-ish game. I'll go. Yeah, I just don't know if we can score enough. But again, we did. The other point is, like, we did see this team score 53 in a half against St. John's. So
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's as crazy as it sounds, but I'll go Bama 91, Cats 86. So close one. They just make an extra shot somewhere along the way that we don't.
Okay, so we weren't too far off. It wasn't as close as normally. I got a 92-80 Crimson Tide winning it. I got a feeling we'll keep this game. I think we're going to keep it within like 6 to 8 points for most of the game, but it's one of those games you almost feel like we're never in it, even though it's I kind of got a feeling it's going to be one of those games. But Jake, let's say all does go right. All does go right. Who is the MVP of this game for the Cats?
I honestly kind of think it's going to be Ortega, and again, not from the aspect of he's going to go out there and drop 25, but I think he's probably not going to be matched up with Phylon, but he's probably going to draw Holloway a lot. He's going to have to bring it on the defensive side of the ball. So if you tell me like we're for sure going to get one of those good Ortega games, then I think we'll be right there in this.
I'm going to say, and it might be a cheesy answer, might be. I don't know. The guy scored 20 last week. Since he's came back, this team has looked incredibly different, and it's not Jalen Lowe. It's Mohamed Diabate, obviously the former Alabama Crimson Tide. He should know a little bit about this team, should know a little bit about what they want to do. I think it's going to be a game you look back and you're like, all right, nothing, just one of those like Amari Williams type stat lines. 8 boards, gives you 4 assists. Now, granted, I'm not saying Amari did this, but maybe knocks down a 3 or 2, big 3. Yeah, exactly. But I'm saying I think that's what you're going to need. You're going to need that from them in this game for them to win. So give me Mohamed Diabate if Kentucky's going to pull out this win to be my MVP. Neither of us are predicting it. You got Ortega. I got Mo. I'd like to think a lot of the reasons that Otega-Oweh didn't do well against Alabama last year is because of Mohamed. So there's that.
No, I agree. And I know we focus on it. I mean, we did play them pretty close in Rupp last year. I mean, that was a pretty much back and forth game that I think they beat us by like 4. So, I mean, because of the SEC tournament, we think of that whole series being as lopsided as probably that one game.
And the game there, too, was rough.
Well, the game there, I think, that went pretty similar to, I think, how you just kind of predicted it. Down 6-8 the whole time, but never really in it. So, I think,
which is rough because the whole time you're like, oh man, I think we might be able to come back.
I think there were still some moments where we might have cut it to 4 or 3 here and there, but no, I don't know. I mean, it's at noon on Saturday. I don't, we'll see what kind of crowd they bring in, but I'm telling you, there's a path there. Now, is it a very wide path? Could you drive a semi down it? I don't think so, but I think you could hop on your little bicycle and ride down that path that does exist.
Well, guess what, Jake? If you want to give me a bicycle and a trip down to Tuscaloosa, I'll ride it down that path all day long down there to try and get these Cats a win. Jake, obviously, great catching up with you here. A week's gone by since we've been able to talk about Kentucky basketball, so it is great to get back in here.
Last pod of the year.
Last pod of 2025. Been a crazy year. First credentials came in the year 2025, Jake. Let's hope for a lot more in 26.
You and Tyler are growing up right before my eyes. I'm a proud papa.
Yeah, especially the fact that Tyler's older than you. That's why it's probably be very insulted when he hears that on the plate.
If you don't tell anybody that, they would have no idea. The guy that I'm not gonna. I'll save that for off the air.
Jake decided to not get personal at the very end of this podcast. Probably greatly appreciated from Tyler Britton, but Jake. Obviously, man, Happy New Year. You and the family coming here soon. Hopefully the Cats started off right. with a win down in Tuscaloosa. And of course, Jacob and I will be here to cover it on the Cats Talk podcast, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X, anywhere and everywhere you get your content. We're there. Follow us on the Cats Talk podcast. Jake, go Big Blue, as always.
Go Big Blue. Happy New Year's, BBN.